Hi, welcome back to the Gabster channel. My name is Gabby, and today we're going to make some baklava, or you can pronounce it baklava or baklava, depending where you are. Basically, it's filo pastry stuffed with pistachios and walnuts. It's a Middle Eastern dessert, but you can find it in various countries and places as well. This is going to be a low in sugar recipe, so more a modern recipe. So it's not the type that's going to be dripping in syrup and honey and sugar. So it's more of a drier version, crispy yet still chewy and still sweet enough. So let's move on. Let's make those baklavas together. So you're going to need some filo pastry. You can get those from any grocery store. They usually come in a package of 454 grams. You're going to need 1 cup and a quarter of melted butter and a silicone brush to brush with it. 2 cups of unsalted pistachios. And 1.5 cups of walnuts. So the recipe also requires sugar syrup. The original recipe is actually asked for 4 cups of sugar, but we're only going to put 2/3 of 1 cup. So 2/3 of a cup of sugar. I'm using some organic cane sugar, but you can use any sugar that you'd like. Optional, you can use 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. It just gives it a nice flavor. And you're going to need 1/3 of a cup of water. So this becomes the syrup. This is you're going to use at the end to drizzle over the baklavas when they come out. First thing we're going to do is we're going to chop the pistachios, and for that you're going to need either a food processor or you can use a blender. You can use one of these things, and the worst scenario you can just put them in a Ziploc bag and just with a mallet just beat them up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take half a cup of the pistachios that we have set aside, and we're going to grind those. The reason we're putting those separately is because these are going to be ground super fine and they're going to be used as a garnish on top. And there we go. We're going to put those in the little cup here, just set aside. Set aside for later. Now we're going to put the rest of the pistachios and the walnuts. So these become like 1.5 cup each basically. But if you remember, we put 2 cups in 1.5, but we took 1/2 of the cup of the pistachios to do the garnish on top. So we got the rest of the nuts in here. And we're going to grind those. These don't need to be ground super fine, just fine enough, but not too fine. I'll show you in a second. That's about it. This is in real time. That's kind of what it looks like on the inside. There should be some big pieces and some small pieces, and as you can see here, that's kind of like a good mixture ratio. So we're going to put those in another container here. Now with the nuts, what you can do is, from when you do your sugar sauce, you could add like a teaspoon in there. I usually just add a maple syrup or any kind of syrup basically. I just put about 1 tablespoon in the whole thing, as you can see here. Just drizzle it around. I will also add about 1 tablespoon of water. The idea is just to give it a bit of moisture, and then the mixture become a little bit more stickier, a little bit, if you can say. So as you notice, there's not a lot of sugar inside the baklavas. The only sugar you have is the one you have in the garnish on top, and you can control that and put as much as you want. Like I said, the original recipe calls for 4 cups. We are using 2/3 of a cup. You could use more, you could use less. As you can see now, it's a little bit more moist, just a little stickier, that's it. It's no longer powdery looking. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to grab a big tray, roughly around 18 inches by 13 inches. The closest you can get to the Filo pastry, the better. Usually they're a little bit too big. Sometimes they have to trim a little bit off them, but otherwise, something around this size is good. Make sure it's got lots of butter on the bottom, so it's nicely greased in. You're going to unroll your Filo pastry. Just be very careful with them. They're a little bit delicate. And the best these things is to let them unthaw naturally. Putting them in the microwave is not a good idea at all. They just become very sticky and very bad. So in general, they need about a good half hour to an hour to unthaw naturally. Just take them out of the box and they will become nice and easy to handle. Often the first layer or two are a little bit tough to handle. You just have to be very patient with them. And you can slowly see, once you separate the first couple layers, it becomes a lot easier. As you can see, this is our first layer here, and we're going to put that right on the bottom. Here we go. And this is where you start brushing with your silicone brush. You are going to grab some of the butter here, and you're just going to brush it. Another way you can do is you just shake it like this, it becomes a lot of drips, and then you can quickly do that. Because you're going to have to do this 20 times, so you're going to need to find a way to speed up the system a little bit, otherwise it will take forever. So that's one layer, then you're going to grab your next layer. So you're going to do this about for 1/3 of the filo that you have. I've got 5 sheets so far. On the edges, as they're slightly too big, you can bend the edges a little bit, and with a bit of butter on top, they'll blend in very nicely. The other way is you can cut some with either scissors or a little knife if you want to. But often bending them is just an easy way to do it. So I'm going to put about 7 layers here. This is number 6. And this is layer number 7. It's going to be the last layer of the bottom part. So the next thing, now that we've done all the bottom layer, is to spread the nuts. So we're going to take all the nuts that we have mixed up, and we're going to spread them as evenly as you can. Now you always think you have a lot of nuts when you start with, but then you realize that it's just enough. So don't assume that's way too many nuts, it's just barely enough. You can always put more nuts if you like, or less. It depends on your preference and what you like. So I've got them pretty much evenly spread out here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start putting the top layers. So we're going to start with one layer here. First layer feels like it's not holding on much, but you have the edges, so what you can do to stabilize it is just get the edges wet first, and that's going to hold the filo in place. So if you start brushing the middle, it's just going to start moving around on you, and it's going to fall apart. And then you just go like this, let it drizzle, very light touches. You can hold it a little bit with a finger or two, sometimes it helps. The first layer is the hardest because it's just not supported by much, and you can put a little bit more butter on it than the other ones just to make sure it seals and holds properly. And we're going to carry on. So now we're going to put all the remaining layers on top. I'm not going to bore you with that. So same thing, you put a layer, you brush it, another layer, till they're all done. And this is the last layer. The last layer, just put quite a bit of butter on it because it's the one that's going to be on the very top. You want it to be as golden possible. Now you'll notice with the butter that the bottom becomes more milk, and that's okay. You don't need the milky part too much. So you're going to end up with a little bit of residue in the bottom, and this is fine. So you're not using the entire amount, but the best is milk. Actually, it just separates. That's what butter is based on anyway, so that is fine. So now you've got it all brushed up, and Next we're gonna do is the tricky part, and this is the part that everybody struggles in, which is cutting the pieces in a nice way. And for that you need like a nice sharp knife, not serrated, just straight edge. And the first thing you want to do is you make an X line. Now you have a nice X. And once you have the X, then you just have to, space it evenly, and you make another line beside it. So we're going to go like this, and we're going to cut it, just this parallel line, and keep doing that. And you can see here how the lines are formed. We're going to carry on the other side. So once you cut this side, you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to do another parallel line to the X. And you can see how they look into nice lozenges. And that's what makes them look really nice. So they're not just square. You should have at the end like a nice lozenges shapes. So there you go. You can see now they're all cut off. And they look really nice. We're going to heat the oven for 350. Alright, so we got the oven heated here. We're going to put it in the bottom shelf. And we're going to bake them in there for a while. So you're going to take your sugar mixture with the water and a little bit of maple syrup. We're just going to bring it to a boil. And you're just going to let it boil for roughly around maybe a couple minutes. Just make sure it's not splashing, so you might have to turn the heat down at some point. And after you let it boil for a minute or two, you're just going to turn it off and just going to let it cool down. It's been about 17 minutes now, and they're about brown, light brown. They need to be a little bit browner than that. They should be brown, but not super dark brown. So maybe a couple more minutes. In total, in general, about 20 minutes. It's been about 25 minutes now, and you can see that so this is the way you want them to look like. It's a nice brown color, but not super dark. And we're just going to let them cool for roughly around a minute or two. And then we're going to pour the syrup and some more nuts on top. Once they have cooled for a couple minutes, we can pour the syrup on them. Now you don't have to pour it all. You can use your judgment. Just because you made it doesn't mean you need it all. So I usually do 2/3 of a cup and end up not putting all of it, so I end up putting maybe about say half. So I would say in total there's about half a cup of sugar sauce. And after that you're going to take your nuts that you made earlier, and you're going to sprinkle those on. And nuts on top. And that's what's going to give us that really beautiful texture and look. And also add a little bit more pistachios. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to cut them a little bit. What I usually use is like a pizza cutter, and you just follow the lines, just like that. And that's going to make cutting them a lot easier, because if you use a knife, they start popping out and causing problems. Just be a little careful. They are crunchy on the outside, but it's slightly soft on the inside. If things pop out, just gently put them back on like that. And you're going to do this till it's all done. And then what you're going to do is take some off the tray, and you can start putting them on a plate. That usually makes them look a lot nicer. What I usually do is put the odd shaped one in the middle and the other one on top, and that makes it look nice. Start by putting them in a circle, and then you make another layer and another layer. And here we go. This is all finished. I hope you liked this video. I'm going to put in the corner here about my mamul recipe, and in here about my scones recipe. There'll be a speaker in the middle if you'd like to subscribe. But till then, if you make these, just make sure you enjoy them. Crunched on the outside, soft on the inside. Eating the crumbs is one of the best parts.